What you're talking about is one of the core bets of the business, is that we believe that electricity demand is going up rapidly. This is why we exist. The grid is really not sized for today's power demand, but it's really not sized for where power demand is going.
Welcome to Austin, Texas, home of breakfast tacos, brilliant founders, and power grid blackouts nobody asked for.
And the power going out is a big problem, but we know some guys who have a plan for homeowners and business owners when that does happen.
Zach and Justin have built powerful home battery units that keep Texans' electricity running during outages and help lower their energy bills. The battery stores energy when it's cheap or sunny, and then uses it when it's most needed.
And the team at Base Power just raised $200 million from investors to provide reliable backup power to homes and businesses all across Texas.
We're standing less than a mile from their offices here in downtown Austin. So let's head over, get a tour of their space, have a deeper look into their tech, and sit down for a conversation with Zach and Justin.
It's all coming up on Blueprint America.
Yeah, welcome to HQ here on Riverside Drive, right here in Austin, just right downtown. So this is the office space. We've got a demo area which we can show you, and then we've got the lab in the back. So maybe we get started there.
Yeah, man, let's check it out.
Awesome. Cool. I'm Justin Lopas, one of the co-founders.
Yeah, Zach Dell, co-founder and CEO.
Relatively not super exciting office stuff. We've got a lot of dashboards here for all the metrics. First stop is going to be here, which is the base neighborhood. So what we're looking at here is an example of what we call our Gen 1 system on a model home here in the base neighborhood. So I'll kind of walk you through the system and how it works. One kind of cool thing we can do is turn on our little light show here, just to kind of give you a sense of how things are moving. So normally when you come to the house, before we install all of our stuff, which is the 3 white boxes over there, you've got electricity flowing through the meter and down into the main panel, and that's what's powering your home. So these two things are connected. When we do our install, we break that connection and we stick our system in the middle, and that allows us to do what's called whole home backup. So we've got basically 3 units that go on the wall in this configuration, and we'll see if we can show you in the back. We actually have a different configuration now that's a ground-mounted unit of what is very similar hardware. The green lines are showing where the power is flowing, goes through what's called the hub, which has got some power electronics in it that turn you on and off of the grid when the grid goes on and off. The inverter, which converts the AC energy on the grid into DC energy in the battery and vice versa for charging and discharging, and then the battery itself. So the cool thing here is when the power goes out, you can see by the red lights, now the battery is backing up the home.
Wow.
And that home is on, and your sad neighbors, unfortunately, are not on. So that's kind of the little demo to kind of show you how the system works.
How many homes in Texas have all the Base Power batteries here?
We're like a little over 1,200 now, nice. But that number is going to be very stale by the time this airs. We do a lot of installs per day. I think we're on the order of 20 right now, and not only the total number, but the number per day is going up. So we've got crews across the state, primarily in the Texas Triangle right now, that are doing installs all the time, inclusive of today.
When an outage happens, how much time is this battery giving for the electricity in the house?
Yeah, so it's very dependent on the usage of the home, obviously, and the size of the home and all that. If you're charging your EV, running your pool pump, and having 3 ACs, it's not going to last very long. If you're just running your refrigerator, it's going to last, a week. Typically, what we quote for an average home with an average usage is about a day. But again, that's very dependent on the usage of the home.
Anything to add there? Full usage, all the appliances in the home.
Yeah.
Obviously varies significantly by, to Justin's point, all the appliances that are running.
And then we don't have it shown here, but we have 3 configurations. One is this wall-mounted unit. We have one that we call the Cube. It's basically a ground-mounted version of this hardware, so it's off of the wall, makes it easier to install, and that's got a little more battery capacity, and we'll do either 1 or 2 of those. And so when you have 2 of them, that's 50 kilowatt hours. That's typically on the order of 2.5 days.
How long have y'all been here at Base HQ?
Since May of last year. So we were in a house for the first 9 months of the company. A house. Partially because we wanted to, the system gets installed on homes, and so we had a test set up there, and we could kind of simulate early iterations of the product. And then it's also kind of fun in early days of a startup to be all in a house together, but we quickly outgrew the house, so we now got a bigger house.
Yeah, dude, it seems like y'all are outgrowing this one too. I feel like there's so many people packed in this HQ.
Yeah, we like to say it's dense and intense.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, everybody's in person, almost exclusively here. We got a handful of folks. Well, we got some folks now out in a warehouse, and we have folks in Dallas and Houston and North Austin doing installs and field service. But have as many people as here in this office as we can.
This is like an amazing setup for media guys like us. Why did you guys decide to put in this demo? Do you have clients coming in often?
Yeah, I think it really brings the system to life. Energy systems broadly, the way the grid works, the meters, the panels, it's some people really understand it, other people don't totally understand it, and we wanted to have a very visual representation of how the product works to bring it to life for folks like yourself, potential customers, potential partners, potential hires, to really like actually see what is it like to have base on your home.
Had politicians come by too we're right down the street from the Capitol, and so that's been very helpful to explain what we do to folks as well.
Yeah, man. These are sick, and I'm excited to get more into the conversation about base power, what y'all are building, what's next for the future of the company, and so.
Should we go check out the lab?
Yeah. Oh, you do. Check out the lab.
Yeah.
Sure.
Cool.
What are we looking at here?
So this is a hardware lab. We're in the process of building it out. What you're looking at right here is a set of 3 thermal chambers. We've got another one in one of the other rooms. Our system is installed outside, just like it's shown there. And so in Texas, that means very cold and very hot and everything in between. And so we run various thermal cycling on our systems in order to do both like long-term reliability, how long will the system last and what will break first, as well as initial quality and requirements. So when we design our system, we need it to be able to withstand negative 20 degrees C. We'll check to make sure that it can actually do that as a check on our design. And so we've got big thermal chamber here, two over here. And then on that side of the lab, we have electrical test. So we've got a few things we're working on here. Probably the first thing to talk about here are these 2 standing units, these 2 walls. These are basically simulated homes. And so they've got a typical home electrical panel with a shutoff and one of our systems. This is primarily where we do our software testing. So we have a little computer that sits inside of all of the units that runs out in the field, all multi-thousand devices. And we run our software on these units before we deploy it into the field in order to check for failures, functionality, performance, et cetera. And so this is like a key area for our software and field test team. Behind me right here are 2 different prototypes of some new hardware we're developing. And then behind you over there are some more pieces of our next upcoming iteration of hardware that we're developing, and we're doing some various tests on, as well as the compute modules that you can see over in the corner there on where we're running a various software cycling tests.
So in the future, this will all be built out with more of these over here, or
we'll have some more simulated homes over there, and we'll be doing some actual assembly of all of our finished product. Today we have a warehouse that we're not going to as a part of this filming, but where we're doing all of our assembly. So if you went in there, it's 20,000 square feet, looks kind of like a warehouse, and you'd see pallets and pallets and pallets of batteries that are both being received from suppliers and kitted and assembled, and then shipped out to customers' homes. So we do all of that local here in Austin, and then we'll do hotshot trucking to Dallas and Houston that then go to their respective homes. So we do all of the logistics from inbound freight to directly dropping it on the customer's driveway the day before install.
And we'll get more into this later in the podcast, but is the goal to go beyond just Texas? Because I feel like we're talking a lot about Texas right now.
Yeah, Zach?
Yeah, Texas was the obvious beachhead market because it's the most deregulated electricity market in the country. And it was a place where we could deploy our technology quickly and iterate and get feedback from customers and get it in the hands of real homeowners. Yeah. But every part of the country needs distributed energy technology, needs the solutions to scale capacity on the power grid. And so the hardware, the software, the firmware, the deployment operations that we're building, it's easiest to get it in the market fastest in Texas. Yeah. We can start learning, we can start iterating, but we think that there is a really exciting opportunity to bring that technology to other states, the investor-owned utilities, the municipal utilities, the co-ops. We last week just announced our first regulated utility partnership here in Texas.
With Bandera, right?
Exactly.
Congrats.
Thank you. And so we'll start to work on more partnerships like that, and I think that that's the thing that probably takes us outside of Texas first, is a regulated utility partnership, and then we'll look at the other deregulated states across the country as well as markets for us. But at the end of the day, we want to bring affordable, reliable power to every neighborhood in America.
Awesome, man. Well, I'm excited. Let's start this podcast, right?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Great.
Hey, welcome back to the show. I'm Jackson Fordyce.
I'm Josiah Simons.
We are here at Base Power HQ in Austin, Texas with Zach and Justin. Guys, we really appreciate you allowing us into the facility to check out the place. Want to give yourselves a quick intro?
Yeah, Zach, go ahead.
Sure. Zach Dell, co-founder and CEO, Base Power.
And I'm Justin Lopas, co-founder, COO, Base Power.
Awesome, dude. What is Base Power?
Base a distributed energy technology company working to bring affordable, reliable power to America.
Yeah, and the maybe the one click deeper, how we're starting the business is doing batteries on homes. Basically, to say it super simply. So we have two models today in the deregulated markets, and we'll talk about all this. And in the regulated markets, deregulated markets here in Texas, parts of Texas, we offer retail electricity. So we basically sell people power at a competitive rate, and then more interestingly, we put a battery on our customers' homes that they use for backing up their home when the grid goes off, and we use to support the Texas grid when the grid's up and running.
So we were talking earlier, we're going through the facility. It sounds like you guys have currently 1,200 units are out there.
That number's
in the Texas
growing
area, but that number is growing every day, 20 plus a day. So we don't know when this airs how many you guys will be at.
We'll tell you for sure the number will be higher.
Yeah,
we'll put it on the screen.
In fact, it might have gone up since I last told you that. looking at the dashboard.
1,202.
You're watching the ticker every minute.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
That's awesome.
We think about it in terms of how many we can get per day, right? It's a rate. It's a rate concept.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So what have you heard so far from homeowners here in Texas? What's the feedback about the Base Power units?
I think the big thing is affordable backup power. So if you're in the market for backup power, historically your options have been incredibly expensive. So you can go buy a really fancy home battery for $20,000, $30,000, or you can get a whole home generator that'll power your home, keep it up and running, and that's going to cost you $10,000, $20,000 depending on the size and what kind of generator you have. And that price point is just not kind of in reach for most of the population. And we wanted to bring something to market that is more affordable and can bring backup power to the mass market, but also has that added benefit of lowering your electricity bill. So really the value proposition with Base is affordable and reliable. You have an option to back up your home. You pay $495 up front. You pay $17 a month. It's cheaper than a gym membership. It's cheaper than a Netflix subscription. It's cheaper than Amazon Prime. And you get all the benefits of backup power without that high upfront cost. And then you're saving on your monthly bill. And we think that's a really compelling value proposition. We think, everyone is interested in affordability and reliability. And we think that there's an opportunity to build a really mass market, consumer business in the energy space where one really hasn't existed
And
today.
we didn't want to just take Zach's word for it. We wanted to hear it straight from the customer. So we drove up to Round Rock, met with David at his home, and had a conversation about how he likes his Base Power unit.
Hello.
David, how's it going?
Doing
I'm
fine.
Josiah.
Josiah.
Jackson. Nice to meet you.
Jackson.
Nice to meet you, David. Thank you so much for welcoming us into your home, and we'd love to check out your Base Power unit.
Be glad to show you.
All right.
So, David, why did you decide to purchase a Base battery for your house?
Goes back to the storm of 21 when everybody across the state found out that the Texas power grid is not all it's cracked up to be. And I made the decision at that point to go out and look at the options. This ticked all the boxes.
So when you're looking at other, alternative power generators, batteries, what about the Base Power unit, and especially the price point? Did that stand out to you as a deciding factor in ultimately choosing the Base Power unit?
Absolutely, and that's why it's sitting here. You look at the price of getting into the generators, you're easily looking at $10,000 plus to get into those types of systems.
Has your power gone out since the installation of the unit, and if so, how has it performed?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
We put it in last fall, and I don't know that we've lost power since then. But don't worry about that. Because the beauty of this is I can sleep at night knowing that if power goes off, it'll come on.
Yeah, what kind of peace of mind does it give you to have this always as a backup in case your power goes out?
Well, for instance, those of us who have medical equipment that needs to stay on all the time, because before, if it went off during the night, you knew it immediately because you're gasping for breath. So knowing that in this particular case, CPAP machines, will stay on is huge.
Have you recommended base to your neighbors and friends yet?
I have, where I haven't been the obnoxious neighbor.
Knocking on doors.
No, I got to tell you something. No, I haven't done that, but I do have friends in other places around the state that I have recommended that base be used.
Big question, have you saved money on your electric bill monthly with the base power versus what you were using before?
I think we've been on enough months now that I'm being able to see that, yes.
Last question. What's your favorite thing about having the unit at your house?
The peace of mind knowing that when the power goes out, this kicks in and I don't have to worry about power for a while. Sure, this is only going to last about 24 hours, maybe if I'm judicious about the way I use my power. But overall, the peace of mind. The peace of mind.
David, we really appreciate you allowing us to come to your home, check out the unit, hear more about it. We're going to go back to the interview now with Zach and Justin.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds amazing for customers. I am curious though. So you're starting at $495, $17 a month. That's 15 times less than the average generator or battery that you're going to be looking at. So how does base power make money?
Yeah, we have a different business model. So we don't sell batteries, we sell power, right? So when we install a battery on your home, that battery is owned by Base. We operate that battery, we maintain that battery. And when the grid is up and running, we use that battery to support the power grid and we're compensated for that. So really, we're building out a distributed asset base. We're really an asset developer, an asset owner, more of an infrastructure provider or an infrastructure developer. And our business model looks more akin to a Vistra or an NRG or a NextEra that is really developing, owning, operating infrastructure than an OEM that's just selling batteries or selling generators.
Yeah. And worth noting, I mean, and folks not familiar with the space might not know this, there are companies of which Zach was mentioning, some that own and operate big, what they call utility scale batteries. So think like a shipping container in like some farmland. And that is a battery that doesn't back up a home. Obviously, it sort of backs up the grid or it serves the grid. You can think about what we're doing is that, but chopping that up into little pieces and putting it on the edge of the grid alongside where the load is. And so you're actually able to back up the load, aka the home.
Besides going up against regulators, what is it about a homeowner that might not want to have base power a part of their home? What's the biggest selling point right now to them?
Well, I think that maybe to address the first point, regulators have been working very, very closely with us. The deregulated market that I mentioned allows us to do this retail energy service, and we're working very closely with the state government on various different permitting and interconnection items and that sort of thing. Why are people interested? It's exactly as Zach was saying. It's affordable power. Our electrons aren't better than any other electrons, and so they're looking for sort of like gasoline. It's like an affordability item. And then the service and the offering is far better and different than if you were to just go to any other retail electric provider in the state, that when the grid goes down, that retail electric provider is also down because they don't have a battery or any backup for you. We provide that additional value-added service, which is backup that no other retailer is doing.
Yeah.
Any business owner or homeowner wants to save money on their electric bill. Does base power also help them save a percentage back of what they're currently paying?
Yeah, we do. Most of our customers end up saving 10 to 20% a month on their electricity.
Wow.
Because we have this asset on the home that generates value, and we can use that value and share some of that value with the homeowner in the form of lower prices.
Go ahead.
It sounds like the base power unit is basically paying for itself not long after you've bought it. So that's pretty incredible.
Yeah. Look, we would describe our strategy as a compounding cost advantage through vertical integration. So we design the batteries, we install them, we own them, we operate them, we build all the software to manage them, we manage all the logistics and the supply chain in the last mile, we sell electricity to the homeowner. The reason why we do all these things is so that we can take cost out of each part of the system, drive our returns up at the asset level, and then pass those returns on to the homeowner in the form of lower prices.
Yeah, and your traditional model, I'll just add, is like if a customer or homeowner buys a battery or buys a generator, it's an expensive, high value thing that could be serving the grid that is just sitting there 99.9% of the time. Our view on this is that's not smart. We should have that thing supporting the grid when the grid is up and running and still use it to support the home when the grid's off. And so that's the way to think about what we're doing is that asset, the battery in our case, is generating value all the time as opposed to only when it's backing up a home.
Yeah, I think said differently, home batteries for the last decade have been this very premium product. They've had this kind of premium valence in the way that they've been sold, the way they've been bought. Yeah. And we believe that batteries are an infrastructure asset. They're a savings machine, and they should be developed and sold as such. And that's really the business model innovation behind our approach.
Can you help me understand the Texas market of being a deregulated state versus other states being more regulated, but there are regulated zones within Texas? Like, can you help me understand that?
Yeah. So deregulation is a bit of a misnomer. There's still a lot of regulation, to be clear. When you say deregulated with respect to the Texas grid, what that typically is referring to is the fact that you can choose who you buy your power from. So if you live in a deregulated part of Texas, Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston, North Austin, Waco, West and South Texas, basically just outside of San Antonio and Austin in terms of the big population centers, at least, you not only can, but you have to choose who you buy your power from. So you have a bunch of different options of what they call reps, retail electric providers, as I was mentioning earlier, and that's the quote unquote deregulated part. Here in Austin, as an example, and in San Antonio and in Manor and Bastrop and all that, those are regulated areas. And so what that means is that the default utility, in the case of Austin, as an example, Austin Energy, is the only option for who you can buy your power from. And those utilities are typically vertically integrated. They sell you power, they distribute the power, they sometimes and often own transmission to get the energy from the generators to their substations. And then sometimes, in the case of Austin Energy, as an example, they also own some generation on the grid. Okay. Outside of Texas, the norm is what I just described, this vertically integrated utility. Where I'm from originally in Detroit, for example, there's a company called DTE Energy, and they own generation, transmission, distribution, and they sell you power. And so our business model is a bit different between the two, where we monetize the value of the battery in different ways. But at the end of the day, the end customer, we call them members, has mostly the same experience. In the deregulated markets, we also sell them power. In the regulated markets, we don't. But in either case, when the grid goes off, their battery's backing them up.
At the end of the day, our North Star is building the best technology in the world to scale grid infrastructure. And starting in Texas, the reason we did that was so that we could get the product in the market very quickly, iterate, get feedback from customers. But the hardware, the software, the firmware, the deployment operations has all of those things have a ton of value in these regulated utility markets. And so we'll deliver that technology, that value to the regulated utilities behind a slightly different business model. So just last week, we announced our first regulated utility partnership with Bandera Electric here in Texas. Yep. In the coming months, you'll see we'll announce some more of those across the state. And I think in the coming months and years, more of them across the country, where we partner up with some of the regulated utilities and bring that technology to them behind a slightly different business model, but the technology is all the same.
What's the one you're working hardest on now? Is it Austin Energy?
I'd say we're working with a lot of the largest municipal utilities and co-ops in the state, and we'll leave it at that for now.
I saw you were talking at the Capitol recently about deregulation of the Austin area specifically. Yeah. I think, right? How'd that go?
We'll see. Look,
how do you think it went?
I think it went okay. I think that Texas is a really good place to do business. It's a really good place to build a company. The legislators, the policymakers, the regulators are open-minded, opportunistic. They're excited about new technology, and they see the problems that the state is facing. There's a ton of growth in the state, which is a really good thing. And we need additional capacity to support that growth. Mm-hmm. And the kind of things that we're doing are adding capacity to the power grid and ultimately going to help the state grow and become the energy capital of the world, which we think is Texas's destiny. Yeah. And we want to help make that happen. I think there's a lot of regulators and policymakers and legislators that see that future as well and want to see that happen. So we're optimistic about progress we made. And then, the last thing I'll say is like, this business is complicated. It's vertically integrated. It's regulated, and so it requires us to go to do things like talk to the Texas State Senate and the House and work with them on how do we set the initial conditions for technology companies like Base and others to build the solutions that the state needs to scale our capacity to consume power.
I want to hear more about the Base founding story. How did the two of y'all meet?
Yeah, so I was at Thrive Capital investing. We made an investment in Anduril. I went down to do a factory tour, and Justin was my tour guide. So we spent a whole day hanging out together, walking around the facility.
Instantly best friends.
And we just hit it off. We started chatting. We kind of identified that we had similar dreams and ambitions. And, I think we spent a couple of months kind of co-founder dating, kind of kicking ideas.
Did you already
back
have an
and
idea
forth.
for Base at the time? Or
I had an idea around distributed energy that came from my time at Blackstone. Before Thrive, I spent a lot of time on energy infrastructure there.
and was really excited about companies in the space. When I was at Thrive, I was kind of looking at a bunch of companies in the space and didn't really see anyone that was doing the thing that I thought was really necessary. And then when I met Justin, I started kind of planting some of those seeds in his head. And then to his credit, he kind of pulled the idea out of me in a lot of ways. And together, I think we crystallized that together over the course of the next kind of 3 to 6 months. And then I think identified that we had a shared vision for the future of energy in the country and said, hey, let's go do this thing together and build a company. Do you remember it similarly?
Yeah, I mean, I was there. Yeah, yeah.
He's lying.
That's exactly right. I think like the initial vision was surrounding how do we increase, as sort of using Zach's language here, increase the capacity for humanity to consume power. I think the only other thing I would add to what he said is we identified there's 3 areas of the energy economy. There's people who make the power, generate the power. There's consumers of power. And then there's this thing in the middle, which is the grid. And there's a lot of money and smart people working on kind of both either ends of the spectrum, whether it's small modular reactors or other nuclear or better solar or wind and et cetera. And then the same thing on the consumption side, there's EVs and heat pumps and electrification of cement and steel and all that. But there's like very few technology, engineering-led focused companies working on the thing in the middle, which is the grid. And so if you zoom forward 10 or 20 years, our view is that without companies like us, certainly won't be only us, but companies like us, the grid will actually be the bottleneck to the ability to consume power, more power over time.
Okay, so I want to hear more about the grid because it's basically your guys' biggest customer is the grid because it's paying you for the units. Is that I don't know if that's the best way to put it, but
yeah, the grid is a really complex topic.
Can you explain the grid too?
Yeah,
we're not energy guys, so
no, totally
I understand it, but not fully.
Yeah, let me see if we can break it down. So the grid is like the actual physical infrastructure is the poles and the wires, and there's 2 basic groupings of the grid, quote unquote, just to kind of tie it to something you would see every day. So if you're driving down the highway and you see big steel frame skeleton, towers with like high voltage wires, that's called transmission. And then if you're in a neighborhood and you see typically wooden poles with like that are lower, that's called distribution. And so it goes basically the grid traditionally goes from the power plant, which is the nuclear plant, the solar farm, whatever, through transmission to the substation, and then from the substation through distribution to the home or business. Okay. So that's the physical part of the grid. Now let's talk about the like economic layer of the grid. So on Texas's grid, as an example, you have 3 main groups. You have people that own generators. Again, nuclear power plants, solar, wind, et cetera. You have the companies that own the poles and wires, and then you have the retailers, the people that sell the electricity that's generated by the generators, and they pay a toll to get their electrons passed through the poles and wires companies to sell to the homeowners. Okay. So those are the 3: generators, poles and wires, and retail. We today are a retailer and kind of a generator when our batteries are discharging.
Yes.
And there are many companies that do both generation and retail. They call them gen-tailers. And so the whole system is economically run by a company, a nonprofit entity called ERCOT. And ERCOT, you can think about them as the kind of stock exchange of electricity. And so they're basically matching customers or buyers or load with generators or suppliers. And so every 15 minutes, the grid is repriced by ERCOT, and that's done on a geographic basis. And that is, again, connecting generators to people that represent homeowners, which are retailers. Does it kind of make sense in general? There's an economic layer and then there's a physical layer, and that's kind of how I like to think about it, at least.
So then how is base power, because it's like a really cool business model. You guys are able to save so much money for the customer because the grid, you're actually sending power back to the grid. Tell us about that.
Yeah, sorry, just one thing before I jump in, Zach, is the traditional model of the grid is one way, meaning it goes from the generator to the home. Mm-hmm. Our view is that a most effective grid is really a two-way street. This is where you have things that can generate or at least store and then discharge, aka generate, on the edge of the grid to go back the other way to serve your neighbors and your local community. So our business model is that we put a battery on a home, we sell power to that homeowner. So in that traditional retail sense, remember the three concept, and then we also sell energy back to the grid. So when we discharge our battery, it first goes to the home, and then anything that the home is not using in excess of our discharge goes back onto the grid, and that's how we're compensated.
Yeah, well said. I don't have much to add there.
All right.
That's amazing.
in the event that, the grid goes down, you see all those movies like, what's that Sam Esmail movie by the Obamas, like is it the End of the World movie where like the grid shuts down, there's a cyber attack. Is there anything that y'all can help with if there is the grid goes down or there's a cyber attack that happens in our country?
Yeah, I mean, when the grid goes off, the individual that is connected to that battery, the homeowner, is backed up. So that's kind of the resiliency piece. I think one kind of subtle but important point here is that maybe taking cyber attacks out of the equation for a second, the reliability of the grid is bolstered by virtue of having more storage on the grid. So if you look at Texas in particular, remember the sort of three categories. Generators are one of the categories. More and more of the generators are what they call intermittent, meaning typically solar and wind, and they're called non-dispatchable, meaning you can't control them. It's either sunny or it's not, and like you can't do anything about that if you're standing there right next to the solar panel. And so that means that you need to store electricity for obviously when the sun's not out and the wind's not blowing, and storage helps add robustness to the grid. So especially also when there is a grid constraint, think about like there's a bunch of solar in West Texas and all the people live in East Texas, and there's a constraint or a congestion on the line that runs from a lot of the solar farms in West Texas to all the population centers in the east part of Texas. You're able to offset that constraint by discharging the batteries in Houston, Dallas, Austin, San Antonio to relieve congestion on that line. And then when there's low congestion on the line, say it's windy in West Texas overnight, you can then charge those batteries back up and then do it all over again the next day.
Wow. Yeah, I think part of the way to think about this is the value of a decentralized system, right? You have a level of redundancy and kind of resiliency with a decentralized system that you just don't have with a purely centralized system. So by putting storage at the edge, you can keep homes up and running in the event of an outage. And then by further putting generation at the edge, so going into the solar market and being able to actually generate power at the edge, you just add additional kind of redundancy, resiliency to the system. So we're very focused on batteries right now. I think eventually you'll see us move into the solar space and add another layer of capability that we can do in this kind of distributed architecture.
That's really cool. So we see all these people moving to Texas. You've got tons of power being used for, I don't know, crypto and large language models or whatever. So are you guys concerned that the grid, especially here in Texas, is being overworked? And is that something Base Power is kind of working to work against?
Well, this is why we exist, right? Yeah. It's that the grid is really not sized for today's power demand, but it's really not sized for where power demand is going, right? To your point, there's massive demand coming from AI compute, data center build out, but also just from the electrification of heavy industry. And I think people kind of lose sight of the fact of how early we are in the electrification of transportation. EV sales as a percentage of new car sales in the US are still single digit percentages, right? In Europe, it's closer to 20%. In China, it's closer to 30%. Those are obviously leading indicators. And so as that number of, new cars sold in the US that are electric goes from 5 to 7% to 50% plus, there's going to be an incredible amount of stress put on the power grid. And so we need increased capacity. And we think this distributed architecture is the most efficient way, both in terms of speed and in terms of cost, to add that capacity to the power grid. So what you're talking about is one of the core bets of the business, is that we believe that electricity demand is going up rapidly. And if you believe that, you need capacity, and we think that our method is the best way to add capacity to the grid.
Justin, what did you learn during your time at Anduril and SpaceX that helped you be a better founder here at Base?
Few things, I guess. So both companies led by just like outstanding leaders, Elon and Palmer and Trey and Brian and Matt or Elon at SpaceX and Gwynn and those guys at Anduril. Was extremely fortunate to have learned from the best in terms of how to build a culture, what good looks like in terms of hiring and managing and maintaining like high talent bar. And I think that's kind of one of the core things that I learned. Obviously, there was a bunch of hard engineering skills that I did not have coming out of school that I learned there. There are obviously some of which are applicable, some of which are not here at Base. But I think the main thing is what does a winning culture look like? Both of those companies are wildly successful, obviously, doing very hard highly technical and highly operational problems, and connecting a bunch of very disparate types of talent and types of problems. One of the things that we like to say about what we're doing here at Base Power is it's a complex coordination business. Basically, we have to have electricians working alongside hardware engineers, working alongside software engineers, working alongside finance people and people that are working on energy trading and how we think about interfacing with the market. And all of those folks have to work together towards a common mission. And that's something that I saw a lot of at SpaceX and Anduril, and I think was a really great training ground for me for me personally on starting base power.
Yeah.
How are you guys advertising to, especially people here in Texas? How are you getting them to say, I'm going to give up on my generator and I'm going to switch over to base power?
Yeah, a lot of it is word of mouth. So people coming in through referrals, their neighbors have base, they hear about it, the power goes out on their street,
Right.
they see one house has
They
their
get
lights
pissed.
on,
They
they're
get
like, what the
jealous.
heck, how are your lights on?
Right.
So that's been a really strong growth motion for us. And then on the direct side, a bunch of kind of direct mail, paid advertising, direct marketing, out of home, billboards, radio, those kinds of things. Really just solving the awareness problem, right? Like if you have been with the same electricity provider for 20 years, sometimes people don't even know that they have the option to choose that provider, and showing them that, hey, there's a new game in town. There's a new power company in town. They have a better offer. It's differentiated. There's a bit of storytelling involved there. And then there's an indirect side of the business where we partner with large companies that kind of interact with homeowners. In the most kind of obvious and most recent case, we announced a partnership with Lennar. They're one of the largest home builders in the country.
Yeah.
And in a bunch of communities throughout Texas, we started small, now we're in over 20 communities throughout Texas. When you go to buy a Lennar home, you have the option to have your home be base powered. So when you move in, you have a battery on your home or your electricity company, and they've been a really awesome partner for us as we scale across the state.
That's awesome.
Zach, your dad is one of the greatest entrepreneurs of our generation, Michael Dell. What's something that you learned from him growing up that you've applied in the business world, that you've applied to base power?
The list is long. I mean, we could spend a lot of time talking about this. He's an incredible entrepreneur, incredible dad as well. And I think that the biggest takeaway that I had as a kid was seeing him incredibly passionate and excited about the work he was doing, because he saw that it was moving the world forward and creating a difference. And I think that for me, I always wanted to do something similar. And, he's still the CEO of the company 40 years later, and he still has that same energy that he had 20 years ago, 10 years ago. And so it created this example for me of, if you want to be in a role, in a seat, in a position that's super fulfilling, super meaningful, you got to swing big and you have to dream big. And, I think one thing with Dell is that the company has reinvented itself a couple of times. And it's kind of built to endure. Business has been around for 40 years. He's still the CEO. So this commitment to kind of the long term, and having the humility to reevaluate and question things and reinvent the company, those things have been really meaningful lessons. And then some of the blocking and tackling day-to-day stuff. I mean, he's kind of the ultimate CEO coach. So having him in my corner has been a lot of fun. And, he's gotten to know Justin, and he comes by the office and he'll sit down with us. And it's a lot of fun, and feel very lucky to, have him in our corner.
Does he like to give input on what you guys should be doing here at Base Power, how you should be running the show?
Yeah, in a very hands-off kind of way. Like if we ask, he's got opinions. He'll share some opinions that are good, some opinions that are bad. I think we have a very kind of back and forth, it's fun. It's a lot of fun. And, he doesn't know a ton about the energy space, but he's a smart guy, and he's got interesting, thoughts and opinions on building hardware and supply chains and, doing manufacturing. And, there are a lot of parallels to this business, that are relevant for him. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
I want to talk about briefly the big news, the Series B, $200 million. Guys, first of all, congrats.
Yeah.
And also want to know, what will that money be used for?
Yeah, it's really just the next step in our journey to build America's power company. We have very ambitious goals here. We want to build really the defining energy company of our generation, and it's a very capital intense endeavor. But in a lot of ways, it's capital intense by design. I think, great businesses are money machines. And if you can't put very much money in the money machine, it's not a very effective machine. So, we see the capital intensity as a feature, not a bug. And we think we can generate really high returns on capital. And so this is just the next step in our journey to go do that. With this capital, we'll grow the team. We'll build out manufacturing capabilities. We'll insource more of the system and of the process that we operate ourselves. We'll enter new markets. We'll develop new products. So it's really just the next step in the journey. I think that a lot of companies celebrate fundraising as this milestone that you work towards, and we think about it as just permission to keep doing our jobs, right? It's like, congratulations, you get to stay in business, and because you're not free cash flow positive, and that's the ultimate goal, right? Is to build a self-funding machine where we can reinvest profits into new initiatives and grow the business that way. But in the meantime, it does require capital. And so we're excited to bring some amazing partners around the table that know what good looks like, are able to push us, are able to help guide us. But it's really just the next step in the journey.
The thing also I just add to that is that we take a view of working with investors a little bit differently, I think, than a lot of companies do, where we work really, really closely with them. We have folks from our major investors here in the office all the time. In fact, we had one of our major investors here just yesterday. And we've really enjoyed working with all these guys, especially the new ones that are joining the cap table on this round. And they're like directly helpful on very specific things. Many companies are like kind of, we'll take investment from investors and kind of not talk to them for a while and not engage them. We take the exact opposite approach. Investors have seen a lot of, exactly as Zach said, what good looks like. And they're also very tactically helpful on various different projects and things. So we're just really excited for all the new partners we've brought on board for this round and we've had from the past two.
When you guys were meeting with investors, VCs recently, like what was the biggest hurdle that you consistently found them having with Base Power that you guys had to kind of explain why they should still invest?
I think there are certain firms out there that are kind of scared of hardware or scared of capital intensity and, really just want to invest in SaaS and things that are really easy to scale and less execution risk. I think the big risk here is execution risk. This is a complex coordination problem. We're a vertically integrated business by design. We have to do a lot of things well, and that comes with a bunch of challenges. And so that scares away a lot of people. But the folks in our cap table understand that. They understand it's an advantage. They see that the moats that are coming as a result of that, and they're really excited about it. So, we have a lot of alignment with the cap table in the long-term mission, vision, and strategy. And I think that's incredibly important as you scale a business to have a cap table that really sees the long-term vision and really understands it and wants to be a part of it, to Justin's point.
Totally, yeah. What about like you two as founders? Did you guys kind of demonstrate that we are executors and you can trust us to continue to execute?
I think we like to let our game do the talking. So, I think our investors, a lot of them have been around the table for the last 18 months and they've seen us go from, a plan that we wrote down to like actually doing the thing and doing what we said we would do and showing up every day and working really hard and executing. So, we like to do more walking the walk than talking the talk. And, things like this are fun, but like the real, where the progress is actually made is like over there with the team, like showing up every day and doing the work.
Yeah.
And I think the investors that have been around the table earlier, and even the folks who are joining the cap table, they've kind of seen that execution, that day in, day out, blocking and tackling, going from, I remember when we were really excited because we were doing one battery every day, and that was amazing. And now we're doing 20 batteries every day, and soon we'll be doing 50 batteries every day, and building the systems to get to that level of rate. That level of execution, I think, is what folks get most excited about. Yeah,
and the what I would add is just that the team that we've built, I think, is also something that we're quite proud of. Zach and I do not have direct experience in this area. Obviously, we have financial and operational and technical and whatnot experience in sort of other or adjacent areas. We've had to bring on a truly excellent team. And when we talk to investors, we have a lot of our team talk to them as well. And it just kind of goes to show it's like, hey, we're not only able to attract, but also sort of inspire and engage a really, really awesome team to go build this alongside of us. We definitely don't have all the answers. We don't have we don't even know what all the problems are ourselves. And we've brought on a really great team to help build this mission.
Yeah, I think this is still, it's very appreciated, but I think it's still underappreciated broadly. It's like a company is just a bunch of people in a room clicking on keys and, screwing things. And it's a very human thing, right? You need the people. And at the end of the day, the team is the most valuable asset. And we've been able to build a team of really exceptional operators and engineers who have built safety critical systems, who've scaled companies. One interesting thing here is like what we're doing is really, really, really hard. And it's really ambitious. And we think that we have an opportunity to build one of the biggest companies in the world. I say that with lots of humility and, respect for the game and knowing that it's going to take decades to do that. But it actually makes it maybe counterintuitively like a lot easier to recruit some of the best people in the world because the best people in the world are working on something very interesting at a very interesting company that is probably super ambitious. And they have to see what we're doing and say, oh, that's actually the problem I want to work on. That's actually the thing that could put a dent in the universe. And so by taking on something that's super ambitious, we were able to attract people who are super mission aligned and are willing to come work super hard on making it happen.
It is a super ambitious mission. You're based here in Austin. I just have to ask, have you guys reached out to Joe Rogan to be on the show?
I haven't. I don't know if you.
I have not.
Okay.
I have
All
not
right.
yet.
Well,
No, we're fans of Rogan.
Like his audience
not
would be
reached out.
pretty
Oh, for
interested
sure.
in
Yeah.
what you guys are building.
Yeah, certainly. It's a good show. I listen to some of them. Yeah. No, we're. I think to Zach's point earlier, it's like let the game do the talking. We do podcast interviews, and for us, it's a way to get the word out for talent and for potential customers, and sort of just like spread the gospel of base, so to speak.
Yeah.
We'll try to help with that.
But it's not the sort of end mission, right? It's sort of a means to the end mission.
Yeah, unfortunately, there are no trophies for podcasts recorded, but there are trophies
We
for
can get you one if you
Yeah.
want for being on the demo
batteries.
day.
for
Yeah,
batteries
literally.
in the ground,
Batteries
and
deployed,
megawatts deployed,
Yeah.
and revenue and things like that. And so you'll find us here basically all the time, and glad you guys were willing to come here. We don't really do much leaving, so
Yeah.
I guess we'd have to go to Rogan Studio, which would mean
But
we
that
can't
one
be here
you're
at the
down
office.
to
But I think we
go
would
down
do
the
that.
street
So
for.
Yeah.
no,
Yeah, we make them come here.
yeah. If Joe wants to come to the base office, we'd love to have him.
Yeah.
I think that
put in
we've
a
been
good
super
word.
focused on the day-to-day execution, and it's allowed us to move really quickly and get a lot done in 18 months.
Awesome. Well, guys, we really appreciate you guys taking the time to be on the podcast. Thanks for allowing us to come to the studio, the office. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks again.
You're welcome
Yeah.
here.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us on.
Thank you.
All right, thanks for checking out this video with Base Power. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and want to see more of these videos, check out our YouTube channel, Demo Day Media. We have a lot more really cool things coming up in the near future. Yeah, coming up on Blueprint America, a bunch more startups that we're doing, showing you the tech, showing you the lab or the factory, and you don't want to miss it. Thanks so much for tuning in.